All right. Georgia is coming off of a 43-6 win over Missouri. This game wasn't really close. Georgia started off really slow in this game. Both teams in the first drive each punted the ball. Missouri went on a decent drive, 7-play, 33-yard, and they were able to get a field goal. Georgia turns around, scores a touchdown on a fourth down conversion, a 35-yard touchdown to Arian Smith. And then on, it was all Georgia. So early on in this game, it was closer than what we'd want. Georgia again starts pretty slow with Stetson Bennett at quarterback. Defense played really good again. Total offense for Missouri ranked inside, I think, the top 25 before this game. Georgia only gave up about 100 or 270 yards, which is way under Missouri's average. So that's good. Georgia had a block punt in this game. Georgia wasn't able to create a turnover, though, other than that block punt, but it turned out to be a safety. But still, Georgia's defense played really, really good in this game. Missouri's offensive game plan came in with two different QBs. Both QBs could move. Macon actually led Missouri in rushing yards with 11 carries, 42 yards. He had a couple nice runs for Missouri. Missouri only averaged 3.5 yards per carry. That's slightly above the average Georgia gives up per game coming into this game, but that's way under what Missouri gets. Tyler Batty, one of the most underrated players in the country. He was held to 9 carries, 41 yards, and he had 5 catches for 10 yards. So that's nothing really big, and that's really, really good. You look at him in the past, 3 games, Tyler Batty, he was looking at, I think, over 200 yards per game in the past 3 games, which is insane. But offensively for Georgia, Stetson Bennett, you look at the stats. The stats look good. How he actually played. A lot of the downfield throws for Stetson Bennett were jump balls and made by the wide receivers. Let's just be real here. We got to see JT Daniels, though. He threw a couple running back screen passes, swing passes. Threw a slot screen pass. He looked like he was going to throw a deep ball on a play action on, I think, his second drive, but he got hit when he threw it and it turned out to be incomplete. He did throw an interception. Man, he had Jermaine Burton wide open in the slot. If Jermaine Burton would have caught that would have been a touchdown. And if JT Daniels would have put the ball on the money, that would have been a touchdown. But it is what it is. So there's your quarterback play. Again, we'll go back to Stetson Bennett. He played good. Just a lot of the throws that he made downfield were made by the wide receivers, if we're being completely honest here. Kearis Jackson had a nice run early in the second. Actually, I think he had a nice run to start the third quarter. But Jermaine Burton had a couple really good catches. Arian Smith made a really good catch. That was the first touchdown. Marcus Rosemy saved what looked like to be an interception for Missouri back in the second quarter. He saved Stetson Bennett from that. But running the ball was kind of an issue today, at least in my opinion. Missouri is the worst rated rush defensive team in the country. They gave up almost 300 yards rushing per game. Georgia only had 168 yards rushing. 33 attempts, that's about 5.1 yards per carry, which is good, but still not good enough. You see, you had a couple of these rushes came from the wide receivers. So running the ball was kind of an issue. This was probably Missouri's best, and in fact, this was Missouri's best game rush defense-wise, which is insane. This is the same Missouri team that gave up 260 yards rushing to Southeast Missouri State, who only has 2 or 3 wins in the FCS. And Southeast Missouri State isn't even top 70 in FCS rushing the football. So rushing the ball, rush defense for Missouri has always been the issue, and they didn't look as bad. Georgia only had 13 carries in the second half, but Georgia had 20 carries in the first half for just 67 yards. That is terrible. That's 3.5 yards per carry. That's not what Georgia thrives on. Stetson Bennett had 2 carries for 10 yards. He didn't get sacked today. Georgia had 2 sacks in this game. So yeah, this game was just not really clean for the rush, for the rushing stats. Again, 33 carries, 168 yards. Did have 2 touchdown runs, but still, Missouri is one of the worst rush defensive teams in the country. Missouri, the defense played, I thought, pretty good. Again, held them to just 6 points. Missouri really tried to score a touchdown on the last drive of the game. It is what it is. They were calling timeouts. They were doing everything in the book just to score, and they could not get 1 yard. And that, hey, shout out to the second and third string guys in the game that played really well defensively. I mean, I would say everyone pretty much played really well. But in the first half especially, Missouri was held to like 20 yards passing, maybe 30. They brought in another QB, Cook. Both these quarterbacks, by the way, had a combined 9 or 10 attempts before this game. So it's just just kind of funny. They didn't throw an interception though, because most of these throws were 5-6 yard passes. Cook only averaged 4 yards per attempt. Macon averaged only 5 yards per attempt. So it is what it is there. Again, Georgia pretty much shut down the rushing rush. I mean, in the first half, really the first 2 drives, Missouri got a majority of the yards. I think they got like 60 yards rushing in the first 2 drives. But after that, it was pretty much over. But yeah, Georgia wins this game 43-6. This game it started out really slow for both sides. That was kind of expected for Missouri, but not really as much for Georgia. Georgia only won by 37 points. That does not cover the 38.5 point spread, maybe 39. But it is what it is. I mean, I could care less about the spread, honestly. I thought, actually before around Sunday when this line came out, it was at 35.5. So if you took Georgia earlier in the week, you made yourself money, but it is what it is. There's nothing really much to say about this game. Missouri, just not that good. Missouri offensively coming into this game was probably one of the better teams in the SEC, but they didn't have Bazelak, and really Bazelak struggled all season long, or has been struggling all season long, has been very inconsistent. So it is what it is with that. But again, they didn't have him. They had a couple other guys defensively out, but I mean, still, this is one of the worst defensive teams we'll play all year. Missouri and Vanderbilt are pretty equally as bad defensively, except Missouri's rush defense is a lot worse. And again, Georgia wasn't able to run the balls as well as what we'd like. I said Georgia would come in and rush the ball for about 300 yards in this game, maybe 250, and they were way under that. But a lot of that was because Georgia they were really balanced offensively today. So it is what it is. There's nothing really else to say. I guess we can go into JT Daniels' situation. We saw JT Daniels. He played all right. Didn't really get to see him as much as what we'd like to see, especially a lot of Georgia fans want JT Daniels to be the guy. And it's just hard for him to just jump back in it. But this is Missouri. Missouri's just not a good team. And all of his passes were really simple, short routes. Again, he tried to go deep. He did convert a third. He converted a 4th down. That was 4th and short. But he also converted like a 3rd down and long. I think Brock Bowers caught that pass. He completed it for about 15 yards. But that's really about it. He had that 1 interception. It wasn't a bad read at all. JT Daniels is one of the best quarterbacks in the country when it comes to reading the defense and adjusting offensive alignment pre-snap. He might even be the best. But it was more on accuracy on that throw. It was clearly behind Jermaine Burton. And it was clearly unlucky. It deflected off a Missouri helmet too, which does blow. And of course it got intercepted. So, but other than that, I mean, he played as well as what you'd think. Stetson Bennett. Listen, some of the throws that he's been making the past 2 weeks have been very questionable. Give him credit for the Arian Smith throw. That was a pretty solid touchdown pass. The Jermaine Burton catch, both of them really, he had no business throwing those balls, in my opinion. One of them was a 50-50 ball, so I understand that. And Jermaine Burton will beat almost any Missouri defensive back one-on-one. So I understand that, I guess. But when you're playing teams like Alabama, or even if Auburn and Texas A&M somehow get to Atlanta, you cannot be making those throws. That's just simple. A&M is playing right now. That game's kicked off. It's about halfway through the first. A&M's got the ball, I believe. But anyway, you can't be making those throws against those defensive backs. Again, it looks like Stetson Bennett's going to be the starter for Georgia. As a Georgia fan, it is what it is. You just look at his stats. If you did not watch this game, you look straight at the stats, you're like, wow, amazing. He had a really good game, blah, blah, blah. But you just watch him and watch his decision-making. It's just been a little bit questionable. Last week, it did hurt Last week, it did hurt Stetson Bennett. He threw 2 terrible interceptions to a backup Florida safety. This week, it didn't. It worked out. So, again, you're playing Missouri. Missouri's one of the worst defensive teams in the country. Before this game, Missouri was rated in the 110s in total defense. They were 120th in scoring defense. They were dead last in rush defense. So, again, we expected a lot of points for Georgia. We expected a lot of yards. And we did expect a lot of rushing yards. We didn't get that today, again, like I said earlier. But still scored 43 points. Still dominated this game. Again, pretty much doubled Missouri in total offense, in total yards. Missouri had the ball a little bit longer, about 4 minutes longer than Georgia. And that's because they went on those long – they towards the end of the game, they went on those longer drives. Their last drive – or the drive that they got a field goal, they took almost 8 minutes. And then the drive before that, when they missed the field goal, they took 6 minutes. So there is that. But anyway, that's pretty much it for this game. Georgia coming up next. It's a big game. Tennessee, a road game. Georgia's final SEC road game. And let me put this on here real quick. So, yeah, Georgia plays Tennessee on the road next week. Tennessee has a big game today. They play Kentucky. Tennessee's actually the favorite in this game. So there is that. But Tennessee offensively is a really solid offensive team. They've been coming as of late after the Florida game, really. Tennessee's been playing a lot better offensively. They've been able to run the ball a little bit more, actually a lot more, because they played Missouri. Again, Missouri gave up, 450 yards rushing to Tennessee. They gave up a lot of rushing yards to pretty much everybody. But, again, Tennessee plays Kentucky today, so we'll see what we get from that. I'm actually taking Tennessee in that game, and Tennessee's a 1-point road favorite against Kentucky. It's just basically because of their offense. That's just the plain and simple of it. I know Kentucky is ranked, 18, 19, whatever. But still, I'm going to take Tennessee. But Hendon Hooker has played really, really well. Again, after the Florida game. This is all after the Florida game. Who else? Tennessee's been able to run the ball. So this will be a pretty good test for Georgia next week. It's going to be, I believe it's going to be the CBS game of the week. It is a road game. I'm expecting a 3:30 kickoff, as always, to CBS games. But Georgia should be a heavy favorite in this game. They should be around a 24 to maybe even 28-point favorite in this game. I know that might seem like a lot to you, but even against Alabama, I believe Tennessee was a 21-point under. No, Tennessee was a 25.5-point underdog against Alabama. So expect that. This week or next week against Georgia as well. But Tennessee, their offense can score. This will be a good test for UGA defensively. I don't expect Tennessee to be able to run the ball on Georgia. I do expect Tennessee to score some points. Georgia might give up over 13 points in this game. Tennessee's got a really solid offense. Again, since the Florida game, they've been scoring a lot of points. They've been really scoring at will. They scored 62 on Missouri. They scored 45 in South Carolina. Only scored 26 and 24 against Ole Miss and Alabama. But still, in that Alabama game, Tennessee had a lead, and they were down, I think, at one point in time to start the fourth quarter, 24-17. So Tennessee's not a pushover. They've been playing a lot better. Josh Heupel has done a really, really, really good job so far. I know they're only 4-4, but if they get this win today against a road game against Kentucky, I think Tennessee. I think that's a lot better than what a lot of people thought. And Tennessee has looked a lot better this year than what people expected. So that's pretty much it, guys. Georgia plays Tennessee next week. Georgia will be about, like I said, 24 to 28 point favorite. They're a road favorite. Tennessee will be a home underdog. This is a big game for Tennessee, especially if they are able to beat Kentucky, as I do expect them to. They are a 1 point favorite. And I'm going to be real with you. Before the line even changed, it was originally Kentucky -2. Kentucky was a 2 point home favorite. I was all over that Tennessee, especially Tennessee money line. That looked pretty good. But anyway, Georgia should be ready for Tennessee. This is probably Georgia's final test. Georgia Tech's not a pushover either. Georgia Tech, I don't even know what the score is to Miami game. I think the last time I looked, Georgia Tech was losing, and they still are. So it looks like Georgia Tech's going to fall to 3-6. That's an all or nothing game for Georgia Tech. Again, Tennessee is probably the toughest team that we have on our schedule, obviously. But still, I do expect Georgia to take care of business now. Tennessee's defense hasn't really been good all year. Rush defense-wise, they've been okay. You see against good rush teams like Ole Miss. I'm just going to be real with you. I know they gave up a lot of yards rushing to Ole Miss, but 200 of those rushing yards came to Matt Corral. So it is what it is. It is what it is with that. And they gave up, 4 yards per carry to Brian Robinson. So that's actually not terrible. I know they gave up 200 yards rushing to Alabama. Bryce Young was making plays in that game, but still, this rush defense isn't that bad. It's really been their pass defense. So expect a lot of passes in this game. I think Georgia will win. I don't know if they'll cover, though. 28 points might be too much. And we'll see. I don't expect this to be a bad game. I don't expect this to be very close. But I do expect Georgia to win. But anyway, guys, that is it. Hope to see you guys next week when Georgia plays Tennessee. Should be the SEC game of the week, I'm pretty sure, unless something changes. So probably 3:30. So I'd probably see you at 7-ish, 8, 7, 7 p.m. Eastern time or whatever. But anyway, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Go Dogs.